And I said, Joe, I'm waiting till I'm in my 30s. I'm going to save up some money and go for it. He goes, let me talk to you. He took me into his office. He goes, look, I'm in my mid-60s. He goes, when I was in my 20s, there was a lot I wanted to do. I never got around to doing it. He goes, if you really want to do it, you got to do it. So that was my light bulb moment. I was 26. I went to my boss at the ad agency and I said, hey, I'm going to pursue comedy professionally. And that was it.
Are you an aspiring creative in entertainment, business, fashion, design, or the arts? Do you want to elevate your creative passion project to the next level? Then this show is for you. Whether you want a career in television, film, radio, literature, music, or beyond, Creative Breakthrough will show you how to take your dreams and turn them into reality. This show will not only leave you feeling motivated and inspired, but also provide you real-life tools to pursue the creative journey you have always wanted. I'm your host, creative coach, and chicken wing lover, Shireen Kassam, aka the Funny Brown Girl. Yes, I have an unhealthy obsession with chicken wings. Now, get ready to flex your creative muscle. Maz Jobrani starred in the CBS sitcom Superior Donuts opposite Jermaine Fowler and Judd Hirsh. You can check out his first original stand-up special, Immigrant, on Netflix and 3 other solo specials on Showtime. In 2016, he performed at the White House and is a founding member of the Axis of Evil comedy tour, which aired on Comedy Central. He's given 2 TED Talks, authored a best-selling book, I'm Not a Terrorist, but I've Played One on TV, and is the executive producer of Everything Must Change, a documentary about his sister's battle with breast cancer. Find out how Maz went from being a PhD student to an internationally known stand-up comedian. Welcome to the guest chair, Maz.
Thanks, Shireen.
So I want to start from the beginning. First of all, before we start, I want to say thank you for making time out of your busy schedule. We're actually sitting in a hotel lobby right now doing this interview.
Lobby, that's right.
You got 4 shows at the Improv, 2 more tonight, right? Orlando Improv. How are they going?
They're going well. It's a nice room. I like the room a lot. And I will say the early show was a really good show last night. The late show, we had a few drunk people. That happens. That happens on late shows, and it happens particularly on Friday late shows. Friday late shows are the hardest shows because people are exhausted from the week.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They are. Because they've been out drinking, like for happy hour, waiting for you guys to start, right?
Just thinking the more they drink, the better it's going to be. And it just isn't. I'm telling anybody who's listening right now, if you're super drunk, don't go to a comedy club because you're going to act like a fool and they're going to kick you out.
So I want to ask, so when you come to Florida or come to the South, do you feel like you have to change up your material a little bit because of the audience?
Absolutely. I change everything. No, I don't. I do me, you know. I've been doing this for 20 years now.
Wow.
And there were times when I would say, oh, God, I don't know if the audience is going to go with me on something, or rather, especially because I do political stuff. The more you do it, the more you realize, no, it's about you. It's your voice. So if somebody doesn't like something I say, then they don't have to come. And then in terms of just relatability, I feel like a lot of the stuff I talk about being a dad, I talk about kids, so people, you know, can relate to that stuff. And then if I talk about politics, it's stuff that they know about. So for the most part, I don't think there's much to change. No.
So you don't find people here sometimes don't follow you because there's or not even here, but in the Republican states, Republican cities, or those are the people who just don't show up?
Listen, the people that come to my show kind of know what to expect. If they're and within our own community, within the Iranian community, there's a lot of Republicans. There's a lot of people that actually like Trump and voted for Trump that are immigrants, and sometimes they'll get upset at me for making fun of Trump. Yeah. But again, I just tell them, I go, look, this is my show. You can go do a blog or you can go do your own thing. This is my show. So most people that are my fans get it. And even if you're a Republican, I think you should, and I think people that are open-minded can see that, you know, when Trump does something stupid or wrong, they should be able to admit it. You know, let's call a spade a spade.
Right.
I would say, like, if you were to tell me, if I were to tell you I like Obama, and you were to say, well, you know, under Obama there was more drone attacks than under previous administrations, right, I would have to agree with you. I'd say, yeah, you're right. So let's agree on some of the facts.
Yeah.
But if you're just a crazy Trump, like whatever he says, I get tweets. Somebody tweeted me today that Trump is Christ. And they were serious. They weren't being ironic. And I go, okay, well, I can't have a conversation with that person. I don't even think that person understands comedy if I tried to tell a joke about anything.
Yeah. So you just ignore them?
I just ignore it.
Yeah, I just ignore it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you've been doing comedy for 20 years. So walk us through your creative journey. Like, how did it start? What inspired you? And how have you made it to where you are today?
I was inspired by Eddie Murphy when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah. Raw or Delirious?
Delirious. And before Delirious, he had Eddie Murphy Comedian, which was a tape.
Okay.
So this was his early stuff. So he was becoming very popular. Me and my friends would listen to him. I was probably 9 or 10 years old, early 80s. And then I wanted to be like him. I started doing plays when I was 12. Yeah, and I loved being on stage. And the directors would always tell me, hey, you got potential to do this professionally. And then having immigrant parents, Iranian parents, they would, come to the shows. And I remember the director told my dad, he could really do this. And my dad, oh, thank you. And then in the car, my dad's like, that bitch is crazy. Like, don't even talk to her. Like,
well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, he even let you be in the play at 12, or? They
didn't mind me being in the play because they knew that it was something I was doing. But they tried to talk me out of it. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer. Yeah. That's what you should do. Be a businessman. So they convinced me, and then I went to UC Berkeley, where I studied political science, with the thought that I'm going to become a lawyer, and with the thought that I would maybe just do comedy or plays on the side. And then I got my poli-sci degree, and then I decided, you know what, I don't want to be a lawyer, I'll be a professor. So I got into UCLA to get a PhD in political science.
Okay, wow.
And the first quarter that I was there, I thought, let me go see what's going on in the theater department. So I went to the theater department, and I started to I auditioned, and I got in their big play. And I loved being on stage. I was like, this is where I got to be. So basically, I dropped out of my PhD program. And then I worked in advertising for a few years. And then when I was in my mid-20s, I thought I was going to save up some money. And in my I thought, but when I turned 30, I'm going to really try it. And I was doing this play just for fun. And there was a guy at the ad agency who saw some clips of the play and said, hey, you're funny. Have you thought about doing this? And his name was Joe Rhine. He was this guy in his 60s. And I said, Joe, I'm waiting till I'm in my 30s. I'm going to save up some money and go for it. He goes, let me talk to you. He took me into his office. He goes, look, I'm in my mid-60s. He goes, when I was in my 20s, there was a lot I wanted to do. I never got around to doing it. He goes, if you really want to do it, you got to do it. So that was my light bulb moment. I was in my mid-20s. I was 26. I went to my boss at the ad agency, and I said, hey, I'm going to pursue comedy professionally. And that was it. I started taking improv classes and stand-up classes, and that was 20 years ago.
Wow. And so were you just supporting yourself on your savings at that point?
Girl, I'm Persian. We're rich. No,
I know you are. I see your Louis Vuitton shoes and tag watch, and I'm just playing. But I do see your tag watch.
I do have a tag watch. Actually, the way so I was living. My mom lived in LA, and so I was living with my mom.
Okay.
Typical immigrant shit, and I had my job at the ad agency, so I was making whatever it was, like $25,000 a year, right. Which back then was enough to live when I didn't have to pay rent.
Yeah.
And then that paid for my car and everything else. And then at the time also, I had just gotten out of a relationship, and I would stay at my girlfriend's house a lot. Then I ended up in another relationship. Then I ended up marrying her.
And she's the lawyer, right?
She's the lawyer. Okay. So I basically, in terms of I didn't need to rent a place. Between my mom and my girlfriend at the time, I had a place to stay, and then I had my income, and that was it. And then I would go and do stand-up comedy at anywhere I could find. Mm-hmm. You would get $15 and go do a fish restaurant or something in San Diego, 3-hour drive. Or once I became a regular at the Comedy Store, that actually helped me grow exponentially. And there Mitzi Shore, who recently passed away, she was an amazing lady, and she would put me up really late. So I'd be up with all the dirty comics. And it was just, I learned, I grew exponentially, having to follow guys like Andrew Dice Clay and Eddie Griffin and Paul Mooney and Joe Diaz and Joe Rogan and all those guys. You really learn to get strong as a comedian. Mm-hmm. So that's where I really grew.
Okay. So how did you go about finding your voice? You mentioned it earlier, your voice is distinct and people either like it or don't like it. How long did it take you to find your voice, and when was that aha moment?
I would say, listen, when I first started, I took a stand-up comedy class. There was a lady named Judy Carter who was in my
Comedy Bible.
Yeah, so she was in my improv class, and then she goes, hey, I teach a stand-up comedy class. I go, okay. So I took her stand-up comedy class. And in that class, they said, talk about what makes you unique and So we went around and they would say, complete this sentence. It's hard when, it's crazy when, I hate it when, and then fill in your thing. And so it was like, it's hard being a guy. Okay, you need to be more specific. It's hard being a guy in LA. More specific. It's hard being an Iranian man in LA. Okay, more specific. Hard growing up Iranian in America. Okay, there you go. That's your voice. Talk about being Iranian in America. So early on I was talking about that stuff. But being Iranian isn't the only thing that defines me, right? I mean, I got a goofy sense of humor sometimes. I like fart jokes. I like politics beyond Iran. And I love, I got a lot of parenting stuff. So you just ultimately realize this is the stuff that's funny and important to me.
Mm-hmm, right.
That way I could sell it better. Because if I were to try and do a joke about the issue with lesbians in, I don't know, Tanzania or whatever, what's her name? Nanette. Like, she knows that experience. Yeah. I don't know that experience. Mm-hmm. So I could be very on the surface about it, but I'm not going to go deep.
Yeah.
So you just talk about what you love. You talk about what you know. And I would say, somebody told me when I first started, they go, listen, it's going to take you 5 to 10 years to really find your voice. And that's really true. 5 to 10 years getting on stage 5 to 10 times a week and realizing you don't have to please everybody. I used to have jokes where it was like jokes that were for bars. Like if I'm in a bar, I'm going to have the jokes about women's breasts, It's like, and they'll be like, yeah, but you're pleasing the crowd. You're not talking about what's on your mind,
right. So it's important to be honest and genuine with yourself.
I think so. And sometimes, listen, there's comics like Mitch Hedberg or Attell or some others who might not be revealing as much about themselves, but they're funny writers. And so even they find their voice and go, this is the stuff that's funny to me. Mm-hmm. If you're having fun, if you find it funny, people are going to come with you. I saw Dane Cook one time performing in front of like 5 people or something, but he was performing like he was in an arena. And I go, holy shit, this guy's like really going for it. And I realized he's selling it.
Right.
And so the audience is going to feel that, And the opposite is true too. You could have, be honest with what's going on. So if you're in a room and it's 1:30 in the morning and there's only 3 people left, I love being, you have fun with that moment, you know? Oh God, what are we doing here, guys? Why are you here?
Yeah, crowd work and stuff.
Crowd work and talking about, hey guys, I have a day job and I got to be at work tomorrow. I got to be working like 6 hours, but be honest, and then they feel it,
right?
So
you said you took a class, and there's a lot of like friction within a comedy community, whether a class is important or not. Do you feel like that really helped you?
Listen, the comedy community can be judgmental. Everybody thinks they're the shit. Nobody's the shit. Everyone's just as nervous. Nobody has any one way. This isn't like law school where you got to go through A to get to B to get to C. There's many ways to get started. And for me, the reason that a class was what I wanted to do was because I do well when I have assignments. Uh-huh. I also felt that a class was somewhere, it's like going to an open mic, but you actually get feedback.
Right.
And it was just the beginning, just the push into it, right? And then one of the best things I learned from that class was get on stage as much as you can. So me and a few of the other comedians would be like, all right, let's go. We're at a strip club doing stand-up. We're in the church basement doing stand-up. Mm-hmm. Wherever. There was a yogurt store doing stand-up. Whatever it is. It was a coffee shop. So you can learn a lot. And as long as that doesn't become your only thing where you're just staying in classes. I took a couple other classes with a couple other comedians as well. But for me, it was just like, I've always been like that. If I can get an assignment, it helps me.
So do you spend more time getting on stage or more time writing?
I do my writing on stage. So, and back then, I suppose I used kind of Judy Carter's technique of, brainstorming and bubbling, so you take a thought, you write it, and you put a circle around it, and then you put a line off that circle, and see if other thoughts can come off of it, try to build off of that, talk into your tape recorder. But now, if you look at my iPhone, I've got pages and pages of ideas and thoughts that I'll look at sometimes and go, oh yeah, let me elaborate on that. And I'll go on stage and I'll try and talk about it. Or the other thing that happens is, and I tell the young comics, I go, you're going to get to a point where your voice off stage will become very close to your voice on stage. Because a lot of times when people start, I've seen it too, like, I've seen young comedians who off stage are talking to you like this, and then they go on stage and their voice completely, it's like they become a different person.
Yeah.
You go, what happened to that guy that was so interesting off stage? He's doing he's doing Richard Pryor. He's not Richard Pryor. So the longer you do it, the closer it gets. So then what happens is, then in regular conversation, you might say something that's funny to you. And you go, ooh, I could take that on stage.
Right.
And so you take that on stage. So you're almost writing subconsciously.
I think that's the hardest thing to get to, is that on stage, off stage, being able to do that.
It's just the time, you know, it literally, I mean, I have people who think like, I mean, I think we all think, well, you know, the rule is 5 to 10 years, 5 to 10 times a week, but I'm a genius. I'm going to get there in a year, and I'm only going to get up once a week. Mm-hmm. You'll see it. I mean, I always say, if you see somebody who's funny, your first question is to say, how long has that guy been doing it? You know, you can tell a pro, like they land, they're comfortable. I will tell you now, like I'm very comfortable up there, even if there's something that kind of throws me. I mean, we all get thrown sometimes, but for the most part, I'm very honest and sincere. Last night, the drunk guy, I wasn't bothered by it. I wasn't like, hey, what the hell? You know, I was actually very nice and sincere. I go, hey, man, he was talking to this girl. They were talking loud. They go, guys, you guys are obviously drunk. You want to talk? I said, can you guys just go outside? And they looked at me shocked. And I was like, no offense. I just want you to go outside and talk and then come back. And that was just me handling it in my way, which is, you know, that's 20 years of doing stand-up and being comfortable, stopping the show for a second to talk to the kids in the class in the front. Kids, go outside and come back. You're not being punished. Just go and come.
Yeah.
You know, so it comes with time.
With time, yeah. So you've built yourself up, like you've built yourself a global brand. I mean, you tour the world, and people follow you on social media. People come out to your show. You sort of have your little posse, your little clique of people who support you. How did you build that?
The way I think the way I became better known around the world was when we did the Axis of Evil comedy tour, and that was in 2007. It came out on Comedy Central. That was a tour that Mitzi Shore actually put together in the year 2000. So Mitzi was Jewish, and she was watching CNN, and there was an intifada with the Palestinians and the Israelis, and Mitzi said, I think there's going to be a need for a positive voice for Muslims in the world. So she wanted to do a show where she would have her Muslim comedians perform like once every 6 months or something. I was the only Muslim comedian. I'm not even that religious, but I was the only, you know, comedian from a Muslim country. And then she had seen Ahmed, who's Egyptian, brought him on. I'd seen Aaron Cater once, who's half Palestinian, brought him on. And then we all started touring under the name, and Sam Tripoli was on it too, who's Armenian. We were touring under the name Arabian Nights. Now, Iranians aren't Arabs,
right? So
they would always remind me of that. And I said, I know. And so a little while later, years later, we changed our name to Axis of Evil. And we got on Comedy Central. And that was around the time YouTube was taking off. This was like 2007. So what happened was people took our clips, and this is before Facebook or any of this other social media. So back then, somebody would send a link to this massive email list that they had. So I kept seeing my link in these email lists that kept coming through my email. Like, so I was somebody on people's emails. And I was like, oh my God, people are getting to know me. And so eventually this got to the Middle East. You know, back then, this was during the George Bush administration, war with Iraq, war with Afghanistan. There was a lot of demonizing of Middle Easterners, unlike now, where people love Middle Easterners and Arabs and brown people. No, it was a ripe time. And I feel like it was almost like there was an audience waiting for us. There was an audience waiting for our voice. And we were the right people at the right time because, you know, this is 2007. I started stand-up in 98, so I'd been almost 9 years in. So I was strong enough so if people came and saw me, they're going to actually enjoy it. Right. It's not just a guy doing it just for the novelty of it. Ahmed, Aaron, everybody on our group was a few years in, so the show was actually a good show. And so then the Middle East actually had us come, and we went to the Middle East and we did 5 countries, and it was the first time there was a group of American comedians coming to do stand-up for people of the Middle East, not for the troops. So I think that all helped. And then from there, it just picks up, and then social media. And, you know, I did a TED Talk that I didn't even know what TED was when I did it, but now it's got like 8 million hits online.
It does, yeah. What made you want to do that?
The TED Talk came about because the guy who brought us to the Middle East, his name was Jamil Abu Warde. He was the promoter of the tour. he did a TEDx in Dubai.
Okay.
And one of the main guys at TED was there, saw him talk about bringing comedy to the Middle East. And then he said, hey, why don't you come to the main TED Talk in Oxford and bring one of the comedians. And you can do your, 8 minutes, and then he'll do his 8 minutes and do some comedy. So Jamil asked me, I said, sure. So I went and did that with him in Oxford. And that TED Talk, because I didn't know, I was like, how do I do a TED Talk? He goes, just turn your comedy into a talk, your stand-up. So that one got several million hits. And then they called me again and said, look, we're going to go do one in Doha, Qatar. Can you come do it? And I happened to be in the region touring. I said, sure. So I did that one, and that's the one that's got 8 million hits. And it's amazing because nowadays you just don't know where someone's going to know you from. I was at an airport in, I think it was Sacramento or San Jose, and this like African dude, straight up African, came running up to me. Hey, you are the guy from the TED Talk. I know you, man.
That's awesome.
I was like, oh, that's great.
That's
so
awesome.
I don't know where people know me from, but it all comes together, and here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, because I mean, whenever I'm in Dubai or anywhere up in that region, your name is everywhere. People, anytime someone's like, oh, you're a comic? Do you know Maz? Do you know Maz? Like, everybody asks about you.
Yeah, I was going back to Dubai quite, once every year and a half. I haven't been back in a few years. I've been trying to get a tour together. Yeah, look, I mean, that's what social media has done.
Yeah.
When we first went there with Axis of Evil, there was no real comedy scene. There was a couple guys doing stand-up in a few of the places, like Nemar Abu Nasser was doing stand-up in Beirut. And there was a couple others, but there was nobody really doing it big.
Yeah.
Now there's comedy scenes all across the region. Saudi Arabia, I just ran into one of these young guys that I'd met in Saudi Arabia, and it's amazing. He was taping a Netflix special. He's like, hey man, I remember you gave me advice backstage, and I was like, I don't remember, but I remember you. And it was so nice to see. So, comedy is everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think, unfortunately, if you just watch Fox and if you just, listen to Trump, you think that these people are all devils and they're all terrorists. But the truth is, like anywhere in the world, there's laughter, there's jokes. Yeah. And they all want the same thing that everybody wants, which is just, a good paying job, a happy family. So comedy is one of those things, and that's, again, social media, I think, is a beautiful thing. Or even Netflix. Netflix is doing this thing, I think they're calling like the Olympics of comedy or something. And they're having a bunch of comedians from different parts of the world have specials come out. Those little messages are good messages to put out there. So even if they get a glimpse of it, and they go, oh my God. Like, one of the most important things about our Axis of Evil special wasn't us on stage. It was the audience shots. A few people, I saw comments, people go, I never knew these people laughed. Think about it.
Yeah, no, because they think we're scary, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think, like, when you tour the Middle East, or even in America, we really haven't seen, like, a prominent Muslim or Middle Eastern woman come to, I mean, there's a bunch of Middle Eastern comedians.
Women, guys, they know their place, and they really should stay in the kitchen. No, I think it's a matter of time. I think comedy for women, like, just in general, numbers-wise, I think I don't know what the number is, but if you were to take number of men versus number of women, I would guess that there's a lot more men doing comedy than there are women.
Right, for sure.
But I would also guess that is changing more and more, because I think that there's a lot of women who are in this age are going, hey, I don't need that guy to give me approval. I'm just going to do my own thing.
Right.
So you see, like, the Broad City Girls or the Insecure show, or all these people coming up from different places, the Michelle Wolfs, and you go, oh wow, there's some really funny women out there. And it's just that it's this patriarchy that we've set up, right? Where, I mean, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is all about
awesome.
that. It's a great show, right?
Such a good show.
And actually, my first stand-up I did was with Alex Borstein. She and I are old friends, and she took me to a place called Gallagher's in the Valley, and that's the first time I ever did stand-up. So I was so excited when she won the Emmy for that. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time. It's like, I think the reason we're just starting to see more and more Muslim, and I say Muslim loosely because I think a lot of us aren't even religious. Like, I don't want to say I'm Muslim and then somebody sees me drinking and they go, you're not Muslim. I'm not. I don't pray 5 times a day. I don't fast during Ramadan. But by birth, I would be Muslim, right? But I think we're just starting to see even the Muslim men coming through, right? And that doesn't mean that men need to come through before women. It just means, I think, whether it's men or women, I think what it is most of us have come the past 30, 40 years. Our families came. So whether you're Hassan Minhaj with your Indian parents or Aziz Ansari or myself or anybody from that part of the world, I don't know how long Mindy Kaling's family's been here, but when those families come to America, they go and they buy a convenience store,
Yep.
or if they're doctors, they start practicing or whatever they are, and then they want their kids to go to college, and they want those kids to go and become doctors and stuff. But I think once that second and third generation starts landing, and they realize, oh wait, I could get into entertainment. I want to be funny.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's taken us in general so long. That's why, like, because we haven't been here 100 years. Latinos have. Obviously African Americans have, but I think every culture takes a while for them to go, oh, I don't have to follow this. So we're seeing more and more now women go, screw this, I'm going to go do it.
Right.
So I know right now there's some funny women, you're a funny Muslim woman or, woman of color, brown woman. So there's Daya Lakshminarayanan.
She's out of San Francisco, right?
Out of San Francisco.
Yeah.
She's opened for me several times, and I've watched her grow, and she does some really funny stuff. I mean, it's a matter of time before these people are better known in the mainstream, but they're there.
Yeah. So you've been on a lot of late night shows too. Like you've done back in the day when Jay Leno was around. You've done Colbert. What advice do you have for comedians who've been in the game for 5-10 years and want to get to that level? Like, how do you get on those shows?
Gosh, I just think, it takes some time. You get your set together. Make sure you have your tight five that you feel strongly about, that says something about you, sets you apart. And then hopefully you have a manager or an agent or there's a call, they're doing auditions somewhere. And you go do it. Even though again, it's time. I tried for so many years. I wanted to get on. No. I knew the bookers on the Leno show. They were actually very sweet. Bob Reed and Mark Ross, I think. Super sweet guys. And they were like, they came and saw me one time. Yeah, this set's great. And then I got a letter from them, like a form letter, going, sorry, you're not accepted. And I called them. I go, guys, what the hell is this? They go, oh, sorry, we didn't mean to. We're just, you're not going to fit in this season or whatever, but we would have told you, we didn't mean to send you this form letter we sent to everybody. All right. So just kept trying. And then the right timing came together, and it was great. And then Colbert is another one. Colbert, I'm a huge fan of Colbert's. I wanted to get on Letterman. That was my one regret. I never got on Letterman. But I auditioned for Letterman, and the booker just, didn't book me. So maybe I had a bad set, or maybe I wasn't the right kind of comedian for Letterman. You just don't know. So it's just keep going, keep working on that set. Matter of fact, I wanted to try and put a set together for Colbert again. I've sat on the couch a few times, but I feel like I want to do this set about Trump that I have. I don't know. It's just keep going, keep going and find a way to get it in front of somebody, get a good tape.
So I want to transition to TV because not only do you do comedy, you also act. Let's talk about you were on Superior Donuts for 2 seasons. You've been on multiple other TV shows and movies and stuff. How do you balance the two? And I know you took acting classes. How did you transition, or how do you maintain doing both?
Well, I did acting since I was a kid. I was doing plays. So I loved acting, and I was just comfortable on stage and doing all that stuff. So yeah, if you're just a comedian, I would advise you to take a couple acting classes, scene study classes, whatever it is. Because acting, they say, is just reacting, right? It's just listen.
Right.
Sometimes comedians are so used to talking and they don't listen. So you see that in some comedians who just aren't the best actors because they're nervous up there. So really get to a place where you're comfortable and you're listening. And then once I started auditioning, I started getting parts. And early on, when I would do stand-up, they would pay you $15 in LA for a set. But then I would do a TV show or I would do a commercial, and that would pay a lot more. So my acting was paying for my comedy. And now probably with my touring, I make enough money where that's paying for my acting, meaning I can take parts I want to take and say no to parts I don't want.
Right.
If I end up on a TV show, which I did with Superior Donuts, that means I need to stay in town a lot more. And I have young kids and my family, so I want to stay in town. But what I do, you know, I love comedy. I love doing stand-up because ultimately when you're acting, you're doing the script that they give you.
Right.
When you're doing stand-up, you're talking about whatever you want to talk about.
Right.
So even when I'm in town in LA, just on a show, what I'll do is, you know, a couple nights a week, definitely Friday, Saturday, sometimes Thursday even, I'll go and get on stage at the Comedy Store and Laugh Factory. And so that'll bang out, you know, that'll be 4 to 6 sets in a week.
Yeah.
15 minutes at a time. And I will work out new material. And that sets it up so that when I'm ready to go on the road, I can go on the road. So we're in 2018. So 2017 was it? I think it was 2017 was when I taped my Immigrant special. And that came off of our taping. Our taping ended for the show, and I hit the road right away. I'd been getting up, so I don't like let it go and go. Oh,
you're on break.
I'm
You're
on
not
break.
vacation.
I want to keep going.
Working.
You know. Now, of course, if I were writing and all that other stuff, maybe I'd be like, I'm too exhausted. But even then, it's great to get on stage. I love it's part of my social. Like the kids fall asleep, my wife is tired. I leave. I go hit the clubs.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So how do you balance that with kids and a wife, like being gone on tour or even on set?
I go away as little as possible. So, for example, this weekend, I got Friday and Saturday. So I left Thursday, got in here late Thursday, did press Friday morning. I've got my shows tonight, and I'm on the first flight back, 7 a.m. flight back to LA. I get into LA at like 10 a.m. on a Sunday. Hopefully that gives me enough time to make my son's soccer game. Definitely will give me time to make my daughter's soccer game. And then when I'm around during the week, if I'm, you know, I might have meetings here and there, or I'm working on a pilot now for some talk show that once I get into it, that's going to take me away a little bit. But whenever I'm around, I'm very hands-on. So, you know, my wife in the morning takes them to school, but then in the afternoon, I'm like, let me go get them. I'll get them and this and that. And, you know, I like being around them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Though I can say not all parents like to be around their kids, so it's fine if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I know you talked about this a little bit, but I'd love to know, like, being an Iranian, considered Muslim, how do you go about being boxed in sometimes when you're either auditioning for film or TV about being the terrorist or being the stereotypical Arab?
The terrorist thing was early on in my career. I had a few auditions and I got a few parts playing terrorists, and I just took it because I thought you had to. And then quickly I realized I didn't want to do that. So I told my agents then, I said, guys, no more terrorist parts. Then there was parts of like, you know, falafel shop owner, cab driver, all that stuff. I didn't mind those parts as much because in my mind I thought, look, when I'm in New York City or when I'm in LA or whatever, the guys that are my cab drivers are Middle Easterners. They're, you know, that's who they are. So I could play those parts. Now I would say with the new generation of the Hassan Minajs and the Aziz Ansaris and all these guys, I say new, but you know, the younger guys, I think that they're all really pushing for their voice, their voice. And I understand that. And so I actually am in agreement with them. It's like, I feel I'm at a point now where I'm like, I want to do a part that's my voice. So I've had parts like that where I was no accent. You know, I did the movie The Interpreter. I played a Secret Service agent who was an Arab-American but spoke like this. But I'd like to do more parts like that. At the same time, I still have characters that I do. So I'm a big fan of Peter Sellers from back in the day. So I have a character named Jimmy Vestwood, who's this Persian immigrant, Iranian immigrant, who wants to be an American hero. He's kind of a bumbling idiot, but he saves the day. So we're actually trying to turn that into an animation right now. And the key to that for me is he's the hero. So even if he's got an accent or whatever, he saves the day.
Right.
So it's about turning everything on its head. Even when I did Superior Donuts, you know, the guy was an Iraqi immigrant. So he had to have an accent. But the good news was that he wasn't a terrorist. He was a businessman who owned some buildings in the neighborhood. And I made sure with the writers, I said, guys, all of his jokes can't be related to being from Iraq. Like some of his jokes got to be just something that anybody could say. And they were, you know, open to that. And I think that's important too, is for people of Middle Eastern, North African, that's the category now. They're trying to get a category for MENA, MENA. I think it's important to have people from those backgrounds in these parts, because then we can bring something to the writers and go, guys, like, people in my community they don't like ululate the way you have them ululating, for no reason. So, and they listen. Writers are listening now more and more.
Yeah, and this year, I don't remember the exact stat, but they're saying, I think it's double the number of minorities in the writer's room this season.
It's very possible. I mean, Rami Youssef has a show coming out on Hulu.
Yes, he does, yeah.
I think a lot of young people are going, look, this is my story, so either take it or don't.
Right.
And I think people are starting to really open up, and I've been knocking on that door for 20 years. I mean, I sold 2 shows to CBS in the past that were based on my stand-up, and it was me talking like this, and they just never went past the script. And it's just timing. We just got to keep knocking, and now it feels like they're starting to smarten up a little bit. And like I said, I've got the sketch show now that's based on a lot of these things coming from my point of view, so it would be me talking like this.
Yeah.
We'll see,
Well, best of luck.
Thank you.
So what's your goal in your creative journey?
I used to say my goal was to get to a point where I could shine the light on a lot of other people. There's so many talented people out there. So I would love to, I'm a fan of comedy. I'd love to be able to call up my friends, like Adam Sandler calls all his friends and they go make movies and stuff. I'd love to be able to do that. And I did that with Jimmy Bestwood a little bit, I got all my friends in, and it was so much fun. Every day on set was just, so I looked forward to it. So I hope to be able to do more of that kind of stuff. I hope to be able to make products that have a social commentary. And I hope to be able to keep doing stand-up till I'm 80, 85 years old, like Don Rickles, Those are my career goals.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What have been the most memorable moments in your career?
2 of the most memorable moments happened just a few years ago. I got to go to the White House for Persian New Year. They had a celebration.
Yeah, for Nowruz?
For Nowruz,
okay.
yeah. And they had me speak and then introduce Michelle Obama.
Oh, nice.
And that was like, I was like, my God, I go, this is bigger than anything. Because for me, I mean, it's like, who would have thought that this kid who came from Iran comes to America, his parents don't even want him to do this, he ends up doing this. Then here I am at the White House, at that podium that all the presidents and stuff speak, saying, ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Obama. I mean, like, that was, to me, that was an amazing moment in my life. And then the other one that was an amazing moment in my life was I got to give the commencement speech at UC Berkeley.
Wow.
And that was in front of 45,000 people in their football stadium. Because I went to Cal.
Yeah.
And they had me do their winter commencement speech a few years before. And that was a smaller thing. This was like the real deal one. And again, I got to get up there and speak, and they listened and they laughed, and it was really cool. Like, when you're asked stuff like that, you don't believe it. You're like, you couldn't get Barack Obama,
Yeah.
And the truth is they couldn't get Barack. They were trying to get Barack Obama. They couldn't get him.
I'm so excited for you. That sounds like a really cool opportunity. I mean, 45,000 people,
It was amazing.
leaving a lasting impression on those students before they go out in the real world.
But you want it to be entertaining, and you want it to be inspiring.
Right, and memorable.
Yeah, memorable.
Like, you want to remember who spoke at your commencement, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you who spoke at my, actually, no, I can't tell you who spoke at my bachelor's. At my master's, it was Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz. There you go. Where'd you get your master's?
At UPenn.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, like Trump.
Yeah, we went to the same business school. We haven't seen a diploma, so who knows, right?
Yeah, exactly. The idea was, if you look at it again, if you see Conan, Conan is amazing. I think he did Harvard. It's not on video. It's written out. It's brilliant. Then he did Dartmouth. Again, it's brilliant. He's so good. And he's so specific, but you get it even if you're not from Dartmouth. So I was like, I need to come up with some lines that are specific, but people will get it. So I was like, UC Berkeley has a lot of Asian students. So I was like, UC Berkeley is this, it's that. And then I go, UC Berkeley is like Lucy Liu. If UC Berkeley, I forget how the line goes. It's like, UC Berkeley were an actress, it would be Lucy Liu. Smart, beautiful, and mostly Asian. Or whatever. It was good.
Yeah.
I think they liked it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the challenges that you faced in your career?
I think my biggest challenge was the first moment was convincing my parents and realizing that I don't need to convince my parents, that I just need to do it. That was my biggest challenge, really. It's like, coming from an immigrant background, it took me 26 years to realize you live once, do what you want to do. Don't listen to your parents. that took me so long. It took me 26 years to get there. Or really, if you start at 12, when I really decided I liked doing it, so whatever, it took 14 years to get to the point where I go, I got to do this. So after that, everything else has been like, whatever, I auditioned, I didn't get it, move on. You know, I had to wait till 1:45 in the morning. You know, you'd be at the Comedy Store with an 11:30 spot. At the time, I'm dating my wife, was my girlfriend then. She had a job, a real job as a lawyer. So she'd be at work all day. She'd come home. We're hanging out. I had my job at the advertising agency. And then... Is
your wife Iranian too?
No, she's Indian.
Indian, okay. And her parents, how did her parents react to her dating a stand-up comedian?
Her parents are very sweet. Okay. I think that they didn't really know or care, really. Uh-huh. But yeah, they're super sweet. But we'd be hanging out, and then I'd be like, oh, I got to go. And so that wasn't good on the relationship at all. And then I would go, and I'd say, look, I'm going to go. I'll be back. I'd go try and get up at 11:30, and then some famous comedian would come in and go, I'm going up next.
Yeah.
Then I'd wait for an hour. Then another guy would come, wait for an hour. Now it's 1:45, and there's like 3 people left. And you want to leave, but you stay. And then you go up on stage and you do your 15 minutes. Well, that's challenging in terms of dealing with it in life. But really, because I loved it and I found what I loved doing, it was a no-brainer. I had to stay.
Right.
And that's why I tell people, I go, find what you love doing. Because I tried a few other lines of work, like business stuff, that once I got rejected, I just was like, I'm done. I'm not trying this anymore. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't into those. But if you're into something, like if you're really into being a doctor, then the first time you cut open a cadaver, you're going to be like, oh, this is great. You know, if I ever had to even look at a cadaver, I'd be like, I'm out.
Yep, exactly. You know? Have you ever faced any challenges or obstacles just based on who you are, being Iranian, Muslim, brown?
I mean, those challenges are more the challenges of getting the industry in general to realize that there's an audience for this. Like I said, for 20 years, I've been saying there's an audience, there's an audience, there's an audience. Look, I go to shows, and it's not just brown people. There's white people, there's black people, there's Asians. They get it. This comedy translates. So that's the big challenge. It's almost as if you've got a product that you really believe in, and the world just hasn't caught up to it yet. That's the biggest challenge. But you just got to keep believing in it and keep pushing that product, as opposed to like coming back and going, all right, screw it. How will you accept me?
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about doing your voice. It's like the book Fountainhead, which is Ayn Rand. In that book, there's 2 architects, and one architect is loved in the beginning by everybody, and the other guy's just doing his thing. And then at the end of the book, people come around to appreciate this other guy for his uniqueness.
I love that. I have not heard that analogy before, and I love that, like waiting for the world to catch up versus talking to them what they want. I think that's great advice.
That's really, I mean, it's like, you know, you're doing your thing. You know your thing really well. Keep doing your thing. And hopefully people will catch up to it. Yeah. And maybe they won't. Maybe it'll be the next generation. And people will be like, oh, remember that girl Shirin? She used to do this, you know? And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But I'd rather do that than try to figure out what people want. Because once you try to figure out what people want, now you're a jukebox. You're taking requests. You know, you don't want to be a jukebox. You want to do you.
Yeah, exactly. So what other advice do you have for creatives on their journey?
Just be active, you know. Just to be entrepreneurial, to create your own opportunities. I even tell actors, I go, don't sit in a cafe waiting for somebody. Find a book, produce it, do a play, get into a scene study class. If you're stand-up, you know, find a venue and put on a show once a week or whatever. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Do a podcast like you're doing. You know, there's so many ways now to get out there. Do it, because you never know what's that thing that's going to take you to that next level. And by doing it, also you're getting more and more prepared, as opposed to sitting and waiting.
Yeah.
Because you gotta create your own opportunities. So create your own opportunities.
Awesome. No, I love that. So let's jump into the lightning round.
Yes.
Lightning round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions, rapid fire. You just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice? Joe Ryan. He said, if you want to go for it in life. Don't wait. Do it now. If you have a dream, go for it. Don't sit on your ass and wait. It'll be too late.
Yeah. What is your definition of success?
Definition of success is doing what you love doing. It's not the money part that counts. It's finding what you love doing and just jumping in. The moment I started doing this at 26, and I still had my day job, but I was so happy. That was it. I became really happy and I was successful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Who inspires you and why?
Who inspires me? You know, Muhammad Ali was a big inspiration to me because as a kid in Iran, he was huge. And my dad loved him and I loved him. And then the more I've learned about him, the more I've loved him and what he stood for, and peace, and being able to transcend boxing and transcend what he did. So that's, if I could ever get even close to him, that would be amazing.
What's a habit that's helped you on your journey?
A habit that's helped me. My habit right now is I drink really high octane coffee. Not this one. There's a place called Kings Road in LA that I love. That helps me wake up.
Is it like the nitro coffee or?
No, it's just this. It's a really good, it's like an espresso coffee. It's really one of the best coffees that I've ever had. I look forward to going. I go out of my way to get there. It's called Kings Road Cafe. The other real habit I think is probably just, I feel like, I don't know if it's a habit. It's just like a work ethic. I feel like I don't give up. I don't want to give up. Mm-hmm. So whether it's getting older and it's harder to run and exercise, or it's, having to wait my turn to get on stage, I've got this thing that just goes, you got to do it. You got to wait, That's probably a habit of some sort, or a work ethic of some sort.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what do you want your legacy to be?
Legacy to be just that I helped people and that I was good to people.
People wanted to find you online. Where could they do that?
It's all at Maz Jobrani on Twitter, Instagram, as well as Facebook. It's at MazJobrani. And I also have a website, mazjobrani.com, where they can enter their email address. I send them monthly updates, as well as all my calendars are there.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, before you hit pause, did you find this episode helpful and enjoyable? If so, could you leave an Apple Podcast, aka iTunes review? It'll take you less than 1 minute and mean the world to me. The more ratings and reviews the show gets, the more people are able to find this podcast. If you're unsure how to leave a review, no worries. If you're on your iPhone or iPad, go to the homepage of this show and scroll down to Write a Review. Click on it and you'll be able to rate and review the show. If you're on a Mac, from iTunes, go to the show homepage and on the top, click Ratings and Reviews. Also, please subscribe to get the latest episodes once they drop. If you enjoyed the episode and know someone who would love it, please share. From your iPhone, click on the icon with 3 dots and then share via social media, email, or text. If you want to hear more, head over to funnybrown.com/podcast. You can also find me online. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Funny Brown Girl. Also, sign up for my free newsletter for more tips to advance your creative journey at funnybrowngirl.com/subscribe. And again, if you enjoyed the show, do me a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Now, go flex your creative muscle and keep winning. Thank you for listening. See you next week.